Hey there, and welcome. Today, we're going to crack open the language toolkit and sharpen one of the most powerful tools you have for making your speaking and writing really come alive. I'm talking, of course, about the adjective. So, let's dive right in.
All right, let's start with this sentence. The movie was a movie. I mean, it's technically correct, right? But it tells us absolutely nothing. It's just flat. It's a totally wasted opportunity to actually say something.
Yeah, pretty bland, right? So the question is, how do we fix this? How do we give this sentence some flavor, some personality, some actual information? Well, that's exactly what we're about to figure out.
And that is where adjectives come in. Think of them like a paintbrush for your words. You can add a splash of color, and all of a sudden, you have a totally different picture. Was it a funny movie, a thought-provoking one, or maybe it was a comedy? Each tiny word changes everything. We're about to learn how to use this paintbrush in a few key ways. So let's start with the absolute basics. First things first, what exactly is this tool we're talking about?
At its core, an adjective is just a word that describes something. It adds detail, it adds color, it clarifies what you're trying to say. It's the word that answers those really important little questions, like what kind of movie? Oh, a funny movie. Which car? The red car. How many dogs? 3 dogs. Simple, but so powerful.
Okay, so we know what an adjective is, but where do you actually put it in a sentence? You can think of this like having 3 main settings for our adjective tool. Let's check them out.
First up, setting number 1. This is the one you probably use all the time without even thinking about it, the descriptive adjective. It comes right before the noun it's describing. You know, a funny movie, a delicious cake, a long nap. It's simple, it's direct, and it gets the job done.
All right, setting number 2 is what we call the predicate adjective. This one's a little different. It comes after the noun, and it's connected by what's called a linking verb, words like is, was, or seems. So instead of saying a funny movie, you say the movie is funny. The meaning is the same, but the structure, the rhythm of the sentence changes.
And for our third setting, here's a pretty cool language hack you might not have thought about. Sometimes, a noun can actually pretend to be an adjective. Take the phrase, the bicycle shop. The main thing we're talking about is the shop, right? The word bicycle is just there to tell us what kind of shop it is. Pretty neat, huh?
Okay, you've totally mastered the basics. Now it's time to level up. Let's switch our adjective tool into its first power mode, the comparison game.
So, when we want to compare things, adjectives have to change their form a little bit. And the rule is actually super simple. If you're comparing just 2 things, you use the comparative form, which usually ends in "er." But if you're comparing 3 or more things, you use the superlative form, which usually ends in "est."
And here's that rule in action. So let's say one person is strong, but if you're comparing them to someone else, one of them is stronger. And if you've got a whole group of people, one of them is the strongest. Strong, stronger, strongest. Clear, clearer, clearest. Makes sense, right?
But wait a second. What about longer adjectives? You can't just add er or est to a word like beautiful. I mean, beautifuler? No way, that would sound ridiculous. So, for that, we need our second power mode.
This quote is a perfect example. We don't say importanter, right? We use more important when we're comparing 2 things, like the struggle for liberty versus all the other struggles. And then we use most important to single out that one question from all the other questions in the world. So here's the simple rule of thumb. For those longer adjectives, we're talking words with 2 or more syllables, you just pop more in front of them for comparatives and most for superlatives. Easy. Let's look at a practical example here. You might say, this book is more interesting than the last one I read. That's a comparison between 2 things, right? Then you could say, he is the most skilled player on the entire team. See? That's singling out one person from a whole group. All right, you are ready for the pro tip. This is the secret sauce. This is what separates the amateurs from the masters. What happens when you want to use a bunch of adjectives all at once to describe the same thing? Now, you might not even realize this, but there's this kind of secret, unwritten rule that native speakers just follow instinctively. There's a preferred order for adjectives, and getting it right is what makes your language sound smooth and natural. It just helps sentences flow better and makes them easier for our brains to process. So let's try this out. We're going to build a description from the ground up, step by step, just to see how this works. Our subject is a simple sofa. Okay, so we start with a sofa. Simple enough. Now let's add its color, a white sofa. Then let's add its size. Size usually comes before color, so it becomes a long white sofa. And finally, what do we think about it? Our opinion. That almost always goes right at the front. A comfortable, long, white sofa. See how that just clicks into place?
And there it is, the final sentence. My mother bought a comfortable, long, white sofa. It just sounds right. You wouldn't say a white, long, comfortable sofa. It sounds clunky and weird. That order really does matter.
So, what's the big takeaway from all this? Well, adjectives are so much more than just fancy decoration. They're precision instruments. They take these vague, fuzzy ideas and make them sharp, vivid, and memorable. They would give your words power, precision, and personality.
From where to put them, to how to compare them, to how to put them in order, you now have a much more sophisticated understanding of this essential tool. So the real question is, now that you've upgraded your toolkit, how will you use it to describe your world?